I'm Ryan Milliken from Hardway Performance, and you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
This is Jaron Holder from Holderdown Performance.
This is Anthony Rings from XDP.
I'm Dimitri Miller with No Zone Diesel.
I'm Drew with D&J Precision Machine.
I'm Pinky.
And you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
Diesel Power Podcast.
Diesel Power Podcast.
And you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
The one and only Diesel Power Podcast.
Well, Steve, I want to thank you for joining the Diesel Power Podcast today. We're excited to have you on the show.
I appreciate being here.
It was awesome at the ATS Dyno Day. You guys came out from Indiana, and that truck, that second-gen truck with the supercharger on it, has blown minds. And I wanted to ask you, how did you guys put that together? Like, what was the inspiration? How do you make it all work?
Well, years ago, I think 2-3 years ago or whatever, I had a customer with a thumb and swap truck that was having big issues with turbo lag. He wanted to do something that was kind of over the top. He wanted to do something that wouldn't necessarily break the bank, but I don't know how to put it. He just wanted to do something that was over the top. So I found a video of this supercharged Cummins online, and the guy was offering a kit. So, at our budget level at a smaller shop at that time, it was like, let's try this. Let's put it on my second gen. Let's see if it works. And so we purchased a kit. We put it on my VV truck. At the time, it had a lot smaller injector, and it had like a 62/475 compound kit. And I put it on. It all worked pretty decently at first. I had to change a lot of the plumbing, radiator hoses, a lot of the stuff in the kit just didn't work. So at that point in time, I'd had it. It obviously wasn't going to be something I returned, So we put it all together, and honestly, after we finished all the fab and the mock-up, I daily drove it for about 8 months. The truck in question that we put it on, though, was so tired and worn out and had been such a guinea pig for so long that it started going through a lot of oil. The crankcase pressure was just dominating everything. It just was too much to handle. So we took it back off and we started farting around with the truck in other directions. And there was a lot of people disappointed that we kind of quit on it. So 2 years ago was the first year we'd made a trip up to ATS to Colorado, and we put it all back together in about 3 days and changed a bunch of the tubing and everything and made it work again, essentially, and we had a hell of a trip with it. It was a good time.
How does it drive? Because, say it was a set of compounds on, 5.9, there's a little bit of lag, or any diesel, you're going to feel a little bit of lag. What does that supercharger do? If you're just driving it on the street, how does it feel with response?
Honestly, to truth be told, behind that, I kind of expected back in the old days, we'd put 671, 871 on a car in front of say it was Chevy, Ford, Dodge, it didn't matter, big block, small block. We'd put it in front of a turbo 400 trans, non-lockup type transmission, and you'd be doing 40 mile an hour. You'd bring it into boost, and it just destroy the tires. So this setup still doesn't essentially do that. That's what we're trying to fab for. We're trying to make it better to the point where essentially there is no lag. There's still a little bit of lag in that setup, potentially on a different setup with a different kind of trans tuning, maybe on something that's controllable like an Allison that's a synchronescent trans versus, say, a 618 like we've got it in front of, might work a little bit better. But it still does have a little bit of lag. It's all controllable via an air baffle that actually is built into that setup. So essentially the supercharger sits on top of the valve cover, obviously, and it's got a side exit, okay? Essentially, you have 2 air filters on that setup. One sits in the upper baffle, and that is for when the baffle's closed. And then there is an air filter in front of the atmosphere charger as well, which in the setup we have now is an S480. It's a 5-blade unit from Johnny over at Stainless. But essentially, once the supercharger will produce enough air, I think that thing does anywhere up to about 6 to 7 pounds of boost at idle. And when it gets into where the atmosphere charger starts to basically need more airflow, it's no more than just a Venturi-type baffle that does swing open, and then the turbochargers start to huff their own air. So in theory, what happens is, and this is in theory, we haven't hooked up any gauges to it. I'm almost afraid to put gauges all over on this thing. I think it would probably scare me if I started looking at drive pressures and blower speed and everything else. It would, essentially, I think it would probably change my mind. But nonetheless, it's one of those things that the baffle will open and start to essentially let the chargers feed it. They essentially start sucking their own air.
Gotcha. Well, it's really cool. I mean, we're seeing it in person. The people flock to it. It's just so different of a build that everyone gravitates, towards it to see it. And I know you guys will get it all dialed in and maybe bring it back out for some more dyno days. It'd be really cool to see it again.
Yeah, I've talked to some decent people in the industry, some bigger names in the industry that obviously have bigger shops, and it's been such a wild ride with this truck. It's been something that a lot of people, there's either people that love it or people that hate it. As a matter of fact, with this ATS trip, we put a video up, and it's kind of under the assumption that people would remember the truck from last year, but when we put a video up, it ended up getting like 2 million hits, and all these people have never seen anything like it before. And from my world, I just assumed that so many people would have remembered it from last year because it was such a big hit. I didn't take into account that certain people would have never seen it and just like, oh my God, this thing came out of nowhere. Well, it's been together 2 or 3 times, and the goal with that truck, honestly, was finally to just break it so that we can take it apart and put it together the right way. Because every time we'd start to take it apart, a local show would come up, a car show, something like that. Hey, let's take the truck over here. Let's take the truck over here. And we never really took the time to just take it apart and redesign the air to where it's the right way. So that's the goal with it now. I mean, I think this trip, we took quite a few trucks this trip actually, and I enjoy going up there every year. But the Dodge, I think, probably disappointed more people than it impressed this year, because it just the first pull we didn't get a tack reading. The second pull, it actually started to hammer and run on oil. That thing's pretty wiped out. And the third pull, we just put a whole lot of nitrous to it and put an end to it finally. So I don't know exactly what's wrong with it yet. Obviously, the trailer broke in Nebraska. We had to finally go back and get that last week, and I finally got it back home. But we're going to be going to the Purdue Diesel Dyno Club here this coming weekend with that white Duramax that we took up there to the Gawley Challenge. We're going to take Jim down to Purdue Diesel Dyno Club, see if he can get some good numbers down there, and then we're going to take his Duramax to Rudy's next weekend. So I haven't had any time to take the thing apart, and I fully intend to do some videos and some posts, a lot of information on Facebook. There's a lot of people that kind of didn't believe it was even real, so we need to get some information out there for everybody to see that it does actually work.
That it does. That Duramax, I saw it at the Dyno Day. That is a clean truck. How's that set up? What have you guys done with that one?
Well, basically, it's a customer. His name is Jim Swift. He came to me, about a year ago. Mark and Larry at D&J Performance, Jim had spent about half his life at Danville, what it seemed like. He'd been down there forever. I was still relatively new in the area at that time with him. He'd heard about me, but he didn't know 100% if I could do what he wanted to do. And at the time when he dropped it off, I really don't think he wanted to do what he did. He just, he brought me in 05, it was an LOI. I believe it had a 2.5 style charger on it. Thing did about 7.5 at the wheels. It did very well on the local sled pulls, crew cab long bed. It's a heavy truck. And he took and brought the truck to me. It had a misfire. We diagnosed it down as a bent push rod. We pulled some valve covers off of it. The injectors were just Satan spawn to get out. This thing hadn't been apart in forever. We got it all apart and had a bent push rod. And then the truck sat here, honestly, for about 6 months. And he didn't know what he wanted to do with it. Didn't charge him storage or anything. Just said, let me know when you're ready to fix it or whatever you want to do. He had me order some push rods for it. And I didn't hear from him for about 4 months. And he called me one day and he said, hey, I got a line on this SoCal diesel engine I found on Facebook over from a guy in Iowa. And I said, well, what is it? He goes, it's a stage 2 build. It's a 40 overbore Molly pistons, Creo rods. It's a fire ring block with 14 millimeter studs. It's got like a 9100 cam in it, and SoCal damper, injector hold downs, main caps, stage 2 heads, and a keyed crank. And the price he was getting it for was a really good deal. He says, what do you think? I said, well, if you're serious about doing this, it's a good deal. I'd probably pick it up. So we went over to Iowa and he picked this thing up. And I didn't hear from him. I didn't know he was actually picking this thing up. He actually showed up about 2 weeks later with that, an HSP twin kit, quite a few other goodies, probably about $30,000 in parts, and said, hey, can you have it done in like 3 weeks? Mark at Danville wants to tune this thing on this date. And I said, sure, Jim, we can get it done for you. So I took the cab off the truck, pulled his old LOI out, switched everything over, mocked up the compounds. It already had an existing twin-modded LBZ pump kit on it, so we just went ahead and reused all that, put this thing all together for him, got it done on like a Thursday night. test drove it one time, put it on the trailer, took it down to Mark at Danville. Mark Robiak tuned that truck on I think it was a Friday. We went down there. I can't remember what day it was, but we had trouble with the thing actually sticking to the dyno down there. And the dyno readings were a little bit shy of what we wanted. I think it did around a 960 recorded reading, but it was blowing the tires off of it. We couldn't get the tires to stick, and we just didn't have any smaller tires. So we called it, and we took it over to another dyno over in Angola at ATS Diesel, and that dyno is very tight, very stingy, but it's a great tool for tuning, and it did about 970 on that dyno, and I knew there was going to be a lot more in that truck, so we didn't change a whole lot with it. Truth be told, from putting it together and taking it and dynoing it everywhere, I think we had lost 2 boots, and we had one belt issue with the dual CP3 belt, which those are sometimes known for tossing belts. We tossed the belt, and we blew 2 boots off and reclamped them, and that's honestly, that's as much as we've ever had to redo with that truck. It's been very well behaved. He drives it every day. So we got around to ATS time, and I talked to him about taking the truck, and he didn't want to go, but he's very well deep in this truck with money. I don't know the exact number he spent on it, but he's up there pretty good on money with this truck, and he didn't know what he wanted to do with it. I said, tell you what, we're going to go anyway with my Dodge. Why don't you follow us up there? We'll all carpool or whatever. Throw it on the trailer. You just get there, you get your hotel room, I'll cover your entry fee. And he said, well, you're going to be $500 richer if I don't do it. Yeah, Jim, but no one's ever going to see this truck and appreciate it. It's a beautiful truck.
Oh, yeah.
So we put in the gauntlet challenge, and the day of, he pulled up, and I waved him, hey, you need to, go ahead and drive this thing into the building. He drove it into the building, had guys obviously, making sure he didn't run into nothing, and he backed in and he shut the truck off. He got out of the truck and he looked right at me. He goes, I've never been this nervous in my life, dude. What'd you get me into? Thousands of people just eyeballing you on the way in the building and everything else. And of course, you've got so many big name people and big name shops and an event like that. And, we've been there a few times. People are starting to get to know us a little bit, but technically we're still, we're not a shop that's going to manufacture you a turbo like some of these other guys, So he didn't even drive it on the dyno. I drove it on the dyno. I didn't expect any more about 900 wheel horse out of this truck up there. It's a 72 variable over an S483 with a bat wheel. That's one of the standard HSB twin kits. Nice setup. It's very clean. March tuning is pretty phenomenal as far as I'm concerned. It works very well. And I did a baseline tune on that truck just on the pole, and it did, I think it did around 750 at the wheels. And the owner of the truck, Jim, was standing there watching, and, he just watched Sean Bacher run, who did like 1994 in wheel horse. And, he just, I thought he was going to throw up when he saw this 750 reading, and he didn't know I didn't have the truck turned up. We turned the truck off. We put a little fog to it, and it ends up going almost right at 1100 wheel horse. And I think we were all very happy with that.
Oh, yeah.
For a daily driven truck, he's got a 16, a beautiful 16 that we put a BDS lift on for him and some forces on it, a couple other things, and I think it's tuned. I'm not 100% sure. If it is, we didn't tune that truck, but I think he drives the white truck more than he drives his 16 because it's so nice. It's quiet. The stereo's nice, and you daily drive it. It actually gets better fuel mileage in the 16, which is, we all chuckle about that, but nonetheless, he built himself a very nice truck, and I wanted to make sure people, could see it, and he'd have some kind of a, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, a good feeling about what he did, because, he'd gotten to the point where he almost got to the end, and he's just like, I just don't know about spending more money on this truck. He goes, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but at the level this truck is and how money I'm into it, it's like, it's not even a hobby anymore. It's a darn lifestyle. I said, well, some of these get that way. I think you're this far, you just gotta, pull it out a little bit, and there'll be some gratitude at the end of the road for you. I promise you that. And sure enough, we got down at ATS. We were loading up to come back. He says, I just want to thank you for getting me into this, because I didn't think it was going to be what it was. And I was just a nervous wreck, and it paid off. The people that I talked to and the hands I got to shake and he goes, you go to an event like that and you'd think that, a lot of these bigger name people are just not as down to earth as they should be. And everybody there was all outstanding. Everybody there was, succumbed to the fact that, we weren't just there to try and win. We just wanted to get the truck out there and so people could see it, and it was a good time.
That's what's really cool is the customers. And I think, like with this particular truck and particular customer is, there's probably so much, it's like joy and satisfaction that you get from just being able to help someone, because he's probably always dreamed of that kind of power. And it's hard to find, a place to trust and parts to trust and everything. So, him finding White Knuckles Garage and you and your team there is able to see that come to realization 1,000 miles from home, and
yeah, I wish you'd had some more time to meet him, actually, because Jim and I talked obviously before and after the event, and he kind of came out and told me afterwards. He goes, I got to be honest with you, man. I when I thought about doing this with the truck, I'd gotten prices from Danville. Obviously, had done a lot of business with Danville, and he said, I was going to just load it up and take it to Danville, and my girlfriend kind of smacked me on the back of the head and said, Steve hasn't griped about that truck being there. It's been in their way for 8 months. He hasn't charged you a dime. Give them a shot. Let them see what they can do. And he's like, I'm more than thankful that you gave me the opportunity to do this with you. And I said, I always turn it back at him and say, no, Jim, I'm more than grateful you gave us the opportunity, because it gave me a chance to prove, Jim's one of the guys that's been in the game quite a long time. I mean, in that truck, when it was doing 750 at the wheels, that was an awesome number to have. 4 or 5 years ago, you weren't seeing numbers like you are seeing now. I mean, injector technology, fuel system technology, everything's taking off. It's getting so exciting to see where it's going. And it's one of those things that's very hard to keep up with, especially if you're on a budget.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it definitely is. Now, with White Knuckles Garage, I've known you for a while now. But tell us and our listeners more about the shop, where you guys are located, and what you guys do. I know you do transmissions and like this engine build and other things, but what can someone have done to their diesel if they take it to White Knuckles Garage?
We pretty much do everything from your average service. If somebody's got a check engine light on, or they want an oil change, all the way up to obviously something of the caliber of Jim's truck. With the guys that we have here, we have the capability of pretty much putting anything together. And Northwest Indiana is a unique area in the fact that there's shops all over the place that, if you need something powder coated, I mean, it's like any other area in the regional United States where, if you want to put something custom together, you've got to outsource to quite a few shops. So, but we do essentially, anything, like I said, anything maintenance. If guys have a couple dump trucks they want maintained on a fleet, small or large, or if a guy just has an average pickup, say he buys, it's his first diesel. I mean, probably, I'd say 90% of the phone calls I get during a week are from guys who, this is my first diesel, I'm just getting in the game, I don't even know what to look at, I don't know what to look for. And the conversation always ends like this, why don't you come down and bring the truck down, we'll take a look at it, and I'll let you know the common problems we see with these in the area, and just which direction to go with it, what direction is going to be the best for you. And it's never about being on a budget, it's always about, make sure everything's as cost effective as possible for the customer. So.
Now, with the say the newer trucks, are there common wear items or maintenance items that you're seeing, like on a 6.7 Cummins and the LMMs and LMLs and the 6.4s and 6.7s that, people out there listening, if they're in the same position and they just get this truck, there's things that they could check out and look for and kind of get pointed in a direction of making it run right and lasting?
Well, I mean, as for where we're at, the regional area that we're at, and let alone being an independent shop, you're usually about 5 to 6 years, possibly even 7 years behind that advantage curve that, say, a dealer would have where they're seeing these trucks brand new. Mm-hmm. I'd say 1 in 50 trucks we'll actually see new that somebody has us. We'll do some work on it, put a lift kit on that could possibly void their warranty and stuff like that. So as far as that goes, I mean, we do see some newer trucks, but that's more on the rare side. A lot of 6.4s. We've been just overwhelmed with 6.4s lately, a lot of fuel system problems, correct pistons, things like that, the normal average problems with 6.4s. 6 liters were probably about 75% of our business up until about last year. We see a ratio of probably 1 in 5 trucks that are an actual 6 liter now. Still a lot of Super Duties, but they're not all 6.0s anymore. So, and Dodges, everything from first gens, most of the guys are doing their own work with first gens now. The second gens are getting really popular. 12 valves guys are still kind of doing a lot of their own work. We do a lot of pump work on the second gens, the P-pump trucks. VP trucks are probably the most, honestly, the most popular second gen truck that's coming in the door right now. A lot of third gen trucks, and with the third gen and fourth gen trucks, fuel system problems, obviously, on higher mileage trucks. Transmissions, I don't think it's any secret that people are going to have problems with the Dodge transmission, The misconception that a Dodge transmission can't hold horsepower blows my mind, though. So many people are so against them a lot, they just don't realize that the 618 is one of the strongest units you can actually use if it's done right for the right purpose. Just depends on what you're going to do with it.
They do get a bad rap, like especially the 4-speeds, like the 47s, 48s, 47 RHs. And yeah, I mean, in stock form they're okay, but there is so much room to upgrade and build them and make them hold power. And it's a misconception where it's just, oh, it's a junk tranny, it's just going to blow. I might not, I shouldn't put compounds on it, but that is actually one of the best platforms to build.
Yeah, what I've seen actually kind of blows my mind too is 3-4 years ago, everybody wanted to go to a manual swap. And the misconception that you can't build 47 or 48 to hold the power is almost starting to fall off. But there's still guys out there who just assume that they're just never going to have a transmission that will hold. I mean, we've got a couple customers that we put transmissions in pretty regularly for, and for mainly 48 REs. And these guys they know what they're doing with the trucks, and they're, on a Friday night they drink a little much and they end up breaking them, and we fix them. And the 48s are fun. 47s and 48s are fun. They can be fun, and there's so much room for improvement on them from any kind of factory level, just like anything out there.
On the manual side, do you see a lot of G56 problems, like on the 5.9s and 6.7s in the shop? We don't. I get quite a few phone calls on the G56s, the NVs, the 4500s and 56s. We just don't do the manual trans work in house. So any of that stuff, we're either putting a reman unit in, or we're going to go ahead and try and outsource to somebody who can. I believe there's a company down in Indianapolis that isn't too far from here that does a lot of remans on those. But, we outsource so many different remans on those. We do more clutches than anything on the manual trucks. Obviously, the fifth-gear problems in the 4500 and the 5600s, the G56s, they're pretty die-hard for the most part, but they've got, everything has its accompanying issues, and it depends on what everybody's doing with the truck, obviously, so. You'd mentioned earlier the stainless diesel S480 that's on the Supercharged truck. Have you had a chance to run some of those 5-blade Mafia chargers that I talked with Johnny about a little while ago on the podcast?
They're phenomenal. I mean, we did a number of dyno pulls, hours probably, if you wanted to put it on time basis, with testing with a couple of his 5-blade compound. Just this one compound kit in particular, it's a 63 over a 480. They're both 5-blade units, and it was an entire kit from stainless that I picked up from Johnny. And when we were testing some stuff early on, checking drive pressures, and then obviously putting nitrous to it, I mean, we were seeing well under a 2-to-1 ratio with nitrous on this truck. It's fairly uncommon. We had the wastegate as closed as we could get it on the primary charger, or not on the primary charger, on the high pressure unit, the 63. We had it closed as much as we could get it. We were doing about 100 pounds total definitive boost with spray, and we were seeing about 40 pounds of drive pressure. Those numbers are phenomenal. When I talked to Johnny about it, they used to go on and on about how they see a lot of negative coefficiency on the 5-blades. 5-blades seem to work really, really well with a VP truck. I haven't had a chance to actually put any on a 3rd gen, but I'm thinking that we just bought that new 16 crew cab. It's a cab chassis with 6.7 Cummins, obviously it's 3500 cab chassis. I think that we're going to end up putting some 5-blades on that truck and doing a lot of testing with that. Kind of up in the air about what we're going to do with that truck yet. I just don't know which direction I want to go with it yet, but I knew that the old tow peg just wasn't going to cut it anymore. We hauled with a 7.3 for years, and it was done. So they gave up the goat on us in Nebraska, and we ended up having to. I probably didn't have to pick up a new truck right away, but we stay so busy at the shop. All my stuff kind of takes a back seat. Family life sometimes just ends up taking a back seat. I think what makes all that work well is, having a wife at home that really understands, how much you desire to do this, so, having that in your back pocket is very important, which I've been lucky enough to have a really, really, really understanding and patient wife. The kids as well. The kids are very patient about a lot of stuff because come summertime, there's just a lot of weekends I'm just not home,
Oh yeah, with events and trucks to get done and everything else. It's a huge commitment. I cracked up. I think you were heading out here, and you had sent me a message or a text, and he said the tow pig died. I'm buying a truck. I was like, what are you getting? And you were telling me about the 16. So that'll be cool. I really like those trucks. I like the redesign on them.
Well, I've been looking at trucks for about 6 months, and like I said, being a smaller shop and being an independent shop, like I said, you stay 4 or 5 years behind this curve because a lot of this stuff's just still going to be under warranty for a long time.
Yeah.
And you want to get your hands on them, as many of them as you can, so that you not necessarily can dip into them and change anything, but you want to check out how they're designed, quite possibly even just plug in a scan tool, see what kind of monitors you can look at with your scan tool equipment. Make sure you're going to be well equipped for the ones that do come in, because otherwise you need to pay for some updates, whatever else. I mean, we use a lot of Snap-on bases. We use Autel, obviously EFI Live, and the HP setup we're going to have here pretty soon too, we're going to be playing with. But all that stuff you want to make sure you're prepared for on a small shop level, because you don't want to say you can offer a service and just not be able to provide. So when it came down to it, I knew I was going to go back to a Dodge base. When we bought that 450, that was the biggest cab I could get in like a 2000, 2001. Duramax cabs just weren't as big as that 450 was, and I wanted as much room as I could get so we could stuff as many human beings in it as possible when we go out of town. So it wasn't unheard of for us to stuff 5 or 6 guys in that truck and just, okay, we're going to go here, we're going to go there, always last minute. My world's, as far as what the shop's doing and events we go to, it's usually always last minute. This year we're trying to change that up a little bit. We're trying to make sure we can get to as many as possible and shake as many hands as possible and this, that, and the other.
It's like all the event season starts kicking off, like from April on till October. There's just events all over the place,
Yeah, I know I've been testing quite a few different things in the shop, different injectors and stuff, and we trying to get all that information together, get it all on paper to better serve the customers and know what works and know what doesn't work. That's where getting in with some of these guys, like Stainless, getting in with ATS, the shop incorporation is very important for a small guy. There are some other shops in the area. I know you did an interview with Dave over at Hoosier Diesel. I know he had a truck that had come to him and it was missing some parts that had come from another shop. We helped out where we could. It was good for everybody involved, and the customer was very grateful. We just donated some used parts for him so that this guy could get rolling again. That shop incorporation in the diesel community is so important. You jump on Facebook, and I know I think I caught an interview here last week where there was a lot of drama happening. There's no need for that in any of the diesel community. Even a small shop can work with a big shop can work with a small shop. I mean, all that stuff's very important.
Yeah, I remember seeing that on Facebook when David posted it, and the response from shops locally, shops out of state, people to help a guy that was in a tough situation. I just sat back and I'm like, now this is what the industry's about. This is what makes it go.
And that's what the industry was based on years ago. I can remember going, it's changed quite a bit over the years, but I can remember going to slug pulls and stuff when I was younger, and that's what it was about. Guys would show up and then have stuff that was broken right off the trailer, and other guys would chip in and help them out. I mean, and that's where it all kind of started years ago, in my opinion, in this area anyway. And, I was originally from Southern Arizona, so I didn't have the pleasure of seeing that years ago, but before I started the shop, I worked as, just a tech at all these other shops, and I'd go to dyno days all over the place. Back when Danville Performance used to have some thrashers, man, and they got so big that they couldn't do them anymore. And I remember I'd wrench all day off Friday and all night Friday night and be dead tired just to go try and make 500 wheel horse, 5, 6 years, 7 years. Maybe it's been 8 now. I don't even remember, but with a little old VP truck was all I had, and we usually made it work. That truck usually fared pretty well wherever it went.
That was my first experience with that was going to Shy Diesel Extravaganza, I think in 2012, and I had been to Indiana through different parts of it, just not really for diesel stuff, but just going through. And I remember getting to Terre Haute, and it's like the whole city just expands. I don't even know how many times, and there's all these people, and then you walk through the vendor area and you get to shake hands with everyone, whether you're competitors or not, or you've never met someone, and then after the show you stand and you watch the pulls, and it's that camaraderie that's really cool. And that's what I think diesel people and diesel truck owners really thrive on as well, is knowing that they're part of something. And when there's that kind of, I'll just call it drama between shops and infighting. It's like it turns people off, and someone had mentioned to me about growing this industry and this sport, and the ownership is that's what it's going to take to pull in the younger crowd, the people who don't own a diesel yet but might in 3 years or 5 years. What are they going to buy? What are they going to see with shops and with events and with websites and just everything? And that's kind of at least how I think it all ties together.
Yeah, it's definitely unique anymore, that's for sure. I mean, the social media has done wonders for it, but has also hurt it in so many different realms. I mean, I don't even know where to go with that. Again, you get me yakking on that, you probably get me going for hours, because there's days when I come in and I just don't want to deal with social media. And there's days where it helps everybody in such a big, huge way that you just can't ignore it. It's golden, it's good stuff. But with social media, obviously you got to take the good with the bad. And with events like Shides, I mean, they put on a heck of a show down there. I think this year might be the first year we actually take something to. It's not going to be anything special, but I think we might actually take a truck down there and go do some fooling around. I usually go every year, and I try and sneak in and sneak out before all the after parties start happening, because I really don't want to get myself in trouble. So I think that the city as a whole has done a pretty good job of containing everything, and I know there's been people upset at just how outrageous it gets, but I mean, people could be out doing things that are a whole lot worse as far as you look at it like that,
My the memory I always think about my first time there is, I don't remember where I was, someplace there, and there's a bunch of trucks. It was kind of like just a show. I think it was in a parking lot. People just had the hoods up and everything, and tons of people, and we don't have White Castles out here. And Ryan Gelinas was like, "Hey, are you guys hungry?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm hungry." He's like, "All right, well, why don't you go grab us some burgers at White Castle?" And it was like a block or two away. So I walk down to White Castle, we get all these burgers, I come back, parking lot is cleared out. And there was just like, I think there were some cops on the road, and it was just like, it was too big of a gathering. I was like, man, I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, it's a show. I mean, the first year that I went, I witnessed a bunch of that stuff firsthand, and that's when I made up my mind, if I go, I'm going to kind of try and get out of here before dark. It's like a major metropolitan area in one fairground. So there's good sides of town and bad. You just want to stay away from the bad sides of town, unless you want to get mixed up in all the excitement, But events like that do good things for the sport, and it's keeping everybody else contained. I think everybody just kind of decides when they go to that they're going to kind of, definitely going to have a good time. And whatever that means by whatever set person is where it goes, But, yeah, I remember chatting with you about that, and I was like, oh, boy.
I couldn't wait to just experience just the atmosphere, and then I also wanted to meet the TS Field girls.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it was really cool.
But
for people out there that want to see, like, when you're going to Rudy's or going to these other events, where can they go and see your social media, see the pictures and the videos and the different trucks you guys are building?
And mainly we just work off a Facebook page. We deal with enough e-commerce, wholesale distributors and stuff like that to where we can drop ship parts and stuff like that for everybody in the area. Nationwide. I mean, I've, originally, because I'm from Southern Arizona, it's not unheard of for me to be sending parts to buddies down in Arizona, California, all over the place. We just really haven't focused on putting together a website that's based on parts. Just really honestly haven't had the time. We've been too buried in everything else, and then every time I say I'm going to take the time, something else obviously comes up. So in the years to come, we're really going to focus on getting a website together for everybody. Mainly where we're working off of right now is Facebook. There's a White Knuckles Garage Facebook page. There is actually a website that we'd set up through Comcast, and I honestly don't even know if it works anymore. We really didn't use it a whole lot. It was a phone service thing that we paid into, and we got this free website, and we set it up, and I lost the password long before I think I ever had it, and we just really didn't focus on that. We were our main focus early on, obviously, was every customer that came in, we needed to make sure we were doing it right for each particular person. And when you're doing that right for the customers, that takes a lot of time. Go meeting a guy on a Thursday afternoon because he really wants to talk about his truck and get some tacos at the local bar or whatever, what have you. It keeps it small and it keeps it friendly. And now we're fighting this curve where it's obviously getting bigger, and we're trying to contain it to where everybody feels just as important as they did before. But
Yeah.
We're going to be down at the Purdue Diesel Dyno Club Day, like I said, April 2nd. That's obviously, it's turned into a pretty big deal every year. We're going to take Jim Swift's white Duramax down there and see if he can do some good numbers down there. We're going to go to Rudy's. Looks like this just came up, I think 2 or 3 days ago. Jim called me and said, hey, I want to go to Rudy's. Let's go. So I think Jim and I and the wife and the couple guys are going to stay at the shop and make sure everything's still rolling. We're going to be at Rudy's. I would like to hit some of the stuff down in Indianapolis this year. I'm not sure. Honestly, I haven't looked that far ahead to see exactly where we're going to go yet. I haven't put together a total schedule, but the Facebook stuff we update daily. And probably every couple hours we're on Facebook chatting with people and putting new pictures up and everything and trying to keep people as informed as possible. The Supercharged truck, we're going to get a part, and a lot of that stuff's going to hit Facebook. Obviously, we did a project with an excursion last year that was kind of a crash and burn, but we pushed that thing to break it on purpose. I mean, I took a decently big size injector, like a 195/75 injector, and put it in front of an ATS 3000 or an ATS 4K unit, non-variable, and it was getting pretty warm, so we took it to the track and we went 12s with this thing, and we burned up about 4 pistons in the process. So, but we put that together in a way. I compiled a list of parts for customers. When 6 liters were very popular, they wanted to see a lot of different things. So how's the fluid damper going to work on this truck? How are Flexolite fans? Can you recommend Flexolite fans? What studs would you use if you're going to cross the 500 horsepower barrier? What H-pop am I going to need if I'm going to run in a 195? This, that, and the other. So we put this setup together, and we ran the snot out of it all summer, and we took it to the racetrack, and obviously we broke it there. But I put that setup together with the same studs that I put in every average 6-liter build. I put a set of ARP 425s. We put a set of Victor Ryan's head gaskets on it. We did the head work. We did a couple different things with it when we had it apart, a different valve spring and push rod, was about all we upgraded other than your average build. This thing was phenomenal. It did awesome. Mid-12 second, a high 12-second truck isn't exactly breaking news as far as diesel technology goes, but a lot of people like to see that, and they like to see when we pulled the heads back out of this thing, we'd obviously killed 4 pistons, but the studs, the head gaskets, everything looked phenomenal on the top end, which was good news. It meant at that horsepower level, we could definitely recommend just the same average setup, save the customers some money, make sure they're barking up the right tree, and we're not going to steer them the wrong direction. So probably, the 3 guys that work with me, or the 2 guys that work with me and myself, and my wife obviously is here a lot, I can't even tell you how much our own stuff is broke because we try so many different things, and hey, this week let's go ahead and try this out and see how well this works and that out. And that's all part of the game. That's honestly what makes this whole idea fun, is that we can potentially try and expand our own stuff. And a lot of times it's a headache, and your personal truck's down, and you're driving a Pinto around, and you're, oh man, what am I going to do? I got to drive the plow truck for a week, stuff like that. But nonetheless, it's fun for us. It gives good information to the customers, and in the process, it's kind of like having our cake and eating it too.
Oh yeah, and then the customer gets they don't have to go through that because you've done it. You figured out the weak points and what works and doesn't, and how to get it to a certain point. And it's just, I think it saves them money too, because you don't have to guess on parts and guess on setups.
Well, when customers came to me, and they just constantly asking about Flexolite fans. What do you think about this intercooler? What do you think about this? And I'm a pretty straightforward guy. And the answer was either I've done it, we had these results, or I haven't used them, and I intend to. If I get enough inquiries, I'm going to buy the parts. I'm going to try them in some of my own stuff. That information is priceless for customers because essentially exactly what information you're going to give them. And any of the trucks that we put together, we use for multiple different items. It's not like we're just going to put together a truck and take it to the track. We're going to take we're going to go get groceries with it. We're going to put it on a dyno here. We're going to take it to the track. Potentially we'll hook it to a sled. I'm not real big into sled pulling because I know how competitive I'm going to want to get with sled pulling, and I know what that costs. And I try and keep that at a happy medium where I'll help out who I can with that stuff, and we'll obviously wrench on as many as we can. But I'm to the point where I know if I put together a pulling truck, I'm just not going to know where to stop.
Yeah.
The Supercharger truck, I don't think we'd ever taken it to that level. I mean, realistically, we intended on leaving a 62 over 475 with the Supercharger on it. then we started to mold everything around it, and essentially now what it is, I mean, that truck, and a lot of people don't know this, is a stock 53 block truck. It's a head that was It was a head that was firing by Scheid left down at the Lafayette location. Scheid's firing that head for me in 2010. We've done 4 retorques on it since 2010, and we just could not break the truck. When it started to get into a lot of oil consumption, that's when we started to play with a lot of nitrous on the truck, okay? We're not going to build a 53 block to where we want to take it. Let's go ahead and just put this thing out of its misery. And it was very hardy. I still don't think we've managed to crack the block. Some of the 53 blocks have been a lot more hardy than others, but that truck has surprised so many different people. I mean, we put enough nitrous to that thing. The last nitrous setup was, I think it's a 187,000 solenoid for Nitrous Express. They call it the 187 or 178. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly which one it is, but they call it the trash can solenoid. It's good for quite a bit of horsepower if you've got the supporting fuel. And nitrous, obviously, with diesel, your fuel level is going to, all that's going to work hand in hand. So with being a VP truck, we were always, just a little bit more underfueled than I think we wanted to be, but anybody could have put a P pump on that truck and made it work. And, so many people are against VPs, and that's like what we talked about with the 47s and 48s. Everybody thinks you just can't do anything with them. VPs you can do a lot with. They're fun trucks, and people need to. I just wish people would see how much fun they are, But we this last setup was it's a stage 2 pump from Monster Mike that I bought used from a guy up in Michigan. Stock set of lines. It's got the injectors that we put at this time are a set of 6x13s from stainless. I believe Johnny calls them the Max Mafia injectors, and they feel pretty good. But they come with a custom set of tubes, and it drops from what I understand from Johnny, it drops the injector a little bit down more in the head. A lot better quality there. So tubes, those 613 injectors. Other than that, the stock push rods, stock valve springs, stock pistons with a fire ringed head gasket, 63 over S480. Okay, those are both 5 blades. It's got, obviously, that's a 3.4 Whipple. From what I understand, those were used in the mid-90s or early 2000s on Mustang Cobras, so it's around that level. That's all coupled on top of basically a stock engine. So it's a lot of airflow. And like I said, we're going to do what we can actually. We're going to build something underneath all this that we may end up going to a completely different blower. I'm not sure yet. I've been talking to a lot of guys, and we're going to mold something that's a little bit different. We may go to a single turbo and a blower, but a lot of people are telling me they just don't want to see this thing go away. So, and then there's others who just don't want to see it at all. So, and you got to accept the good with the bad in this industry. You really do.
I think it's awesome. It's something that's different, that's cool, that you guys haven't given up on, and that's what ties the innovation, just pushing things forward, learning what works, what doesn't, and there's so much potential in these engines, especially in Cummins engines. And as you mentioned with the VP trucks, is they're still out there. You can still find them, and if someone's looking for to get into a Cummins, maybe not necessarily pay the higher resale of the common rails, then they can make power. I mean, Johnny's truck makes a tremendous amount of power. There's other ones around the country, so it can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. The technology is there. It's just a matter of having having the desire to put it together the way you want to put it together. Yeah. VP trucks are fun trucks. I mean, you put a set of 6-hole injectors in them, and 64 frame or an S364 or 66, and you're 500 to 650, maybe even possibly 800 wheel horse, and they're fun to drive. And you're not breaking the bank. They're fun trucks. The second gens, I think, Joe that works for me, he's got a third gen now. He actually did pretty good on dyno at ATS, but he had a second gen, and that's what he started out with. And before he worked for me, he actually worked on airplanes, and I'd work on his VP truck all the time. So we used to laugh about it, like, man, you're working on airplanes, and I'm working on your pickup. I don't understand how this computes. But so Joe ends up, working for me. John, the other kid that works for me, he was a dealer tech for a little while. He worked in the machine shop for a while, and used to come in and buy a lot of parts for his first gen, transmission overhaul kits and turbos and injectors and all these different things. And he came in, I went out in the shop on a Sunday and he bought some stuff for me. He said, I don't know if I'm real happy where I'm at. I said, well, I might be looking to hire a guy. And that's where that ended up. And John's been with me, God, years now. I don't even remember how long. I'm sure he could probably tell you better because sometimes these guys just don't want to work for me,
It was really cool, chat with you about the truck and White Knuckles Garage and what you guys do and what you offer your customers, which is top quality service. I know you guys stay busy. You put them first, and as you mentioned, giving them all of your undivided attention, to make sure that they feel, educated about what they're doing, what's being done to their truck, and when they drive down the road, they're happy with it,
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try and do my part this year. We've moved shops one time already. We went from a town about 20 miles east of here to where we're at now, and this building truly is a stepping stone too. I mean, I hear from people 8 times a week, and you need a bigger shop, you got no more parking lot left. Well, it's totally understandable. We're letting it grow as we can, afford to let it grow and let the customer base still to where people can still feel very comfortable about coming in here, to where they're not just a number on a piece of paper or a customer number or anything like that. And we're doing the best we can to innovate as many products and manufacturers for these customers as we can. That's the goal this year, is really mainly to get as many manufacturers and wholesale distributors on par with us to where we can offer as many parts as these guys want to see, okay? And realistically, I think the dyno is going to be in our near future. The tuning game has gotten huge. Trying to make sure these guys are, we're like I said, we're giving them the best bang for their buck, and being able to incorporate these products onto a dyno to see where your gains are, where your strong points are, possibly checking airflow with those numbers. I mean, that stuff's, it's priceless information.
Yeah.
A lot of people looked at me when I bought the Excursion and we just broke it. Man, you just wasted a bunch of money. I don't agree with that one bit. We've incorporated a lot of good name products into this truck and a lot of good name manufacturers, and the feedback, the information we got just after we pulled that engine apart to check out the pure carnage in it was just priceless information. I look forward to see where we're going to be able to take that for the customers.
We look forward to seeing it as well, and hopefully I can make it out that way this year. I'll definitely stop by and visit the shop and say hi and harass you and bug you for most of the day. And
yeah, it'd be good to have you out. I know every time we run into each other, it's usually at ATS, around where you're from, and it's there's so many people and so many things to talk to and do and see. It feels like you're there for 12 days and you're there for 12 hours.
Yeah.
So we have a great time with that. We look forward to going every year. The drive there and back, not so much. But we have to get a lot ready to go when we go and a lot ready to go when we get back, and we're constantly working, constantly going. Where I want to focus, where the shop goes, like I said, this year, next year, the year after, incorporate the right manufacturers, the right parts. We're looking into trying getting some exhaust systems made with our name on them. We're looking into, possibly taking our name to a manufacturing process where we can actually put our name on some stuff for these guys, test a lot more products for them when we have the time, which the time base is always your hardest fight when you're a small shop. It really is. It's one of those things that you got to do the best you can for everybody that walks in the door.
Awesome. We appreciate you being on the podcast today, Steve, and see what you do this year. It's going to be awesome to watch it.
Yeah, keep your eye on Facebook and stuff. Like I said, the VP truck, it may hide for a couple years. I think I'm definitely going to keep it VP. Like I said, I like the VP idea. We considered throwing a common rail in that truck. I don't know which direction we're going to go. The biggest part for me is making up my mind, Patrick, and you've dealt with me long enough to know I'm so indecisive as far as that goes, But keep your eyes peeled on Facebook. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff with the blower. Really look forward to testing a lot more blower technologies with the technology behind it, seeing if we can make it work a lot better. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll incorporate a kit. I don't plan on it, but God only knows, where that takes us. And I appreciate being here, buddy.